Hey everybody, it's a great day. I'm excited to be able to talk about how fatherhood matters. You know what I mean? We have some amazing people here today that I've been blessed to be able to do some research on. That are going to share some information with us. They're going to share some of their inspiring stories, and we're going to have a good time talking about one of my favorite words, which is fatherhood. Which is fatherhood. So today we have three amazing panelists. I'm going to start off introducing all three of them. We're going to start off with Dr. Waldo E. Johnson, who is the Vice Provost and Professor of the University of Chicago School of Social Work, Policy, and Practice. He examines the course roles and context socialization of urban African American males, focusing on non-residential fatherhood, masculinity, and health disparities. I told you we have some amazing people here. Next up, we have Mr. Keynon Lake. It's funny because I feel like we got like a theme going on here. We got the first guy, Dr. Johnson, is social work and field and all that stuff too. And Keynon Lake, I see that you're a social worker, you're an author, and an activist. He's founder of KL Training Solutions and the executive director of My Daddy Taught Me That. I love that. I love the shirts that My Daddy Taught Me That. He served on the Buncombe. Am I saying that right, brother?
It's called Buncombe. It's Buncombe County.
Buncombe County. Thank you, sir, for 20 years plus through the Human Services Department and Child Protective Services. This is what I thought was amazing. It says he leads one of the largest African American owned organizations in the Western Carolinas, and I can't wait to hear more about that. Thank you, sir, for being here. Last but not least, we have Mr. Marquess Dennis with the fly background. So I gotta step my game up. They say, from what I'm hearing, he's a phenomenal public speaker, the executive director of Birthright Living Legacy. Is that right, sir? An amazing organization. They talk about, I've read about, he's a certified trainer and specialized, and this is what I want to learn more about when we get a chance to talk more, specializes in hope-driven parenting and so much more. I can't wait to hear more about that right there. Let's kick into this, guys. So if I could start with who I want to start with. I'm gonna start with Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, you there, sir?
I am.
I'm excited to hear more about you, Dr. Johnson. First of all, what inspired you to get involved in this work, Dr. Johnson?
That's a good question. First, let me begin by thanking you, Reverend Jones, and the Mariah Group for working to do an update on the 2010 We Dream a World report. So I'm very happy to know that the leadership there remains committed to this work and doing all that it can do to enhance the well-being of Black boys and men. My own interest in this work, I would say, comes from perhaps two streams. Professionally, I was working as a program director for a social service agency, and the organization began to do some work focused on urban adolescent Black males. And the idea was to think about the ways in which we could work to keep these teenage young males from becoming fathers too soon. So a lot of work was being done with teenage girls, but not very much with teen boys. And so the idea was to try to do primary prevention work, the idea of talking with these young men about their dreams and perhaps career aspirations, to begin to kind of talk about the process of how you get from let's say, high school to becoming an engineer or becoming a carpenter. So we began to work with the March of Dimes Foundation. Um, and the result of it is a program called Project Alpha that is led by Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity nationally now. It started in Chicago, where I am, but now is represented across the country and even with some of the chapters outside of the continental US. And over time, what we've been doing is continuing to work with um, young males. We've dropped down from just high school males to begin to kind of think about even males in middle school, even though we know that in large measure, those young males don't become fathers during middle school. But if we're thinking about primary prevention, we need to think about this early. And then I would just say quickly, when I think about this from a personal standpoint, I've often um, admired my own father, who was a constant force in my life, and even though he's no longer living, he still remains a really important person who motivates me to do the important things that I do. And so just reflecting on the ways in which I think my life would be far less fulfilled had I not had him involved in my life. I think about the ways these two um, situations or these two experiences have kind of shaped this work. And from there, I've moved from like doing practitioner work to now teaching in the School of Social Work and doing research on fatherhood among urban Black males.
That's good. And Dr. Johnson, thank you so much. Let me just say it warmed my heart to when you started talking about your father, you started smiling a little extra.
I did.
You know what I mean? I saw that. And me being one who my father was my Mr. Miyagi, you know what I mean? The one who y'all know what I'm talking about. That was my sensei. And I was one of those people that used to walk on every step. I remember stopping real fast to try and catch the same. Meanwhile, he was 6'5". He was a big guy. But I'd try and step on the same exact step because that was my Mr. Miyagi. So thank you for sharing that information. And I want to learn more details, but I want to go down the line to talk to the other brothers too. But we're going to come back to you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you for that. And actually, my father was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity too, just to put it out there too. Brother Keynon Lake. Listen, I'm just like you, man. I wanted, just like Brother Johnson, I want to make sure that we're learning because, a lot of these programs and things like that come out of passion. There's something about you that makes me feel like you're a passionate guy. You know what I mean? So tell me more about what got you inspired to be able to start your program, sir.
So like Dr. Johnson, I was born in a two-parent home, right? I had a beautiful mother, a beautiful father. My dad played with the original Harlem Globetrotters. So
wow.
Meadowlark Lemon,
yes, sir.
Geese, all those guys used to freak with the house. And so that's what my family was known for. 100 pounds ago, 20 years ago, I played a little professional basketball and did all that stuff. I tried to live my NBA dream.
Right.
But, my dad also was known for, he worked for 30 years. He and my mother worked for 30 years at the Juvenile Evaluation Center. So working with delinquent teens for the state. So, I was raised as the only child, and so I couldn't get in any trouble. But I had one of those fathers, you throw a rock in any direction, and everybody knew who Benny Lake was. And so, I got my degree in sports medicine, and my dad did social work for the juvenile center. So growing up, he was one of those activists and one of those pillars in the community that everybody called, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, there's no money in that. There's no money involved in that. I want to, try this MBA thing and make money, but God had a different calling on my life. And so I come back home and I start working for the county, doing social work. Well, first I was doing family children Medicaid. They needed more male social workers. And I'm like, nah, again, I saw my pops doing that. I don't want to do that. And so, chasing money. they, after a couple of years, I'm tired of trying out for different, Australia here, this there, and trying to again live that MBA dream. It was like, well, social workers for the county and is dealing with CPS make about $15,000 a year more than what I currently make now. So I'm gonna follow the money. Lo and behold, that became not only my catalyst, but it really put me on my path to find out what my mission and my life goal is, which is servitude. And so, almost 20 years as a CPS social worker dealing with neglected and abused kids. In 2010, my father passed away. And so, I wrote a book titled My Daddy Taught Me That. The book was written to not only, it started off as kind of a tome to my dad, a newspaper article to talk about not only what he meant to me, my family, the community, but, it was kind of an opportunity to kind of honor him. A good friend of the family's, he owned a publishing company. He said, you write a few thousand more words, you'll have a book. Well, the light went off, and it's like, at this time, I'm halfway through my social work career, and what I started to see was one of the biggest issues that I feel we deal with in this country, which is single parent homes. Right now, today in this country, we have 15.9 million single families. 84% are headed by single moms. So what that tells us, if we have 10 kids living in a single parent home, 8.5 of those kids have no access to positive male role models. That was a problem for me coming from the father that I had. And so, I wrote my book, it was like, what, let's write a book, to really talk to men about what it looks like when we're not prevalent, when we're not there for our children. I get it. The way I grew up, the era that I grew up in, things are not traditional. Kids are being raised by aunts, uncles, grandparents. And so with that though, we also get stereotyped. At the time it was only Black men are not raising their kids. I live in a predominantly white community. In fact, African Americans only make up 7-8% of the population. So as a social worker, I'm going to all these communities and trailer parks, the Beverly Hills of Asheville, North Carolina, which is Biltmore Forest. I'm sure everybody on here has heard about the Biltmore House. And so it doesn't matter which area I'm going in. I could be in the hood, I could be in the trailer park, I could be on the side of a mountain. And what I'm seeing is there's no men in these homes. And so not only did I write my book to really educate and inform and to enlighten men about what happens when we're not involved with our youth, I followed that up with a nonprofit organization also titled My Daddy Taught Me That. And so it's a youth program for young men ages 12 through 19. That's our flagship program.
Right.
That program has been operating for the past 13 years. And so we also added a girls version of that. My sister taught me that. We have an after school, a summer school. And so over the last 13 years, we have grown to be one of the largest youth-led nonprofit organizations in Western North Carolina. And so, yeah, the thing that we're talking about are men in our homes and single parent homes, men and our children, and how this, affects. And, I got to talk about the system. We talk about what hurts our kids, and, there is a system that has been intentionally put in place, for the demise of brown and Black kids. And so to really talk about how we can overcome that. And so these are things that we do in our organization, really being able to provide resources, all those things to really help our youth and again, our communities as a whole.
Good stuff. So you even added the advocacy piece to it too.
Absolutely.
That's strong, man. Because, I didn't share it earlier. I run the street violence program for the city of Pittsburgh and also run a reentry program. And, I was the pastor down in the penitentiary for over 10 years. And what was amazing was I'm gonna get to you in one more second, Brother Dennis. What was amazing was when I started working at the prison, a lot of guys knew me from the community stuff and like TV and things like that. And like there was a draw. And what happened was because of that draw, a lot of times and like they wanted to be sort of around the brother. You know what I mean? They wanted to be around me. They wanted to come down to chapel and just sort of have basic conversations about, to me, what is extreme like life. You know what I mean? What's like just regular basic life. So it's funny because in the institution, in the institutions, like if people are getting that type of draw, a lot of times the people in the prison, the security systems and stuff like that will think that they're selling drugs. Listen, all I was doing was loving on the people. I was every night they were checking my when I'd leave, they go and check, make sure I didn't have no drugs and all that type of stuff. And I was like, man, this is all I'm doing is loving on the brothers. You know what I mean? Loving on the people. And as I like to say, in a Planet Fitness mode, no judgment zone. You know what I mean? And just like listening and talking to the brothers. You know what I mean? So that was amazing. But it also showed me that a lot of men want more. And a lot of men want more. They in that advocacy piece that they didn't have it. They didn't have that Mr. Miyagi, as I was talking about with my dad. So like, I love what you guys are doing. So thank you for that and how you took that. And you're like, and listen, I'm gonna move to my brother. How you took it and you just moved forward on it. You guys get me excited because I don't get a chance to talk to that, because a lot of these fathers are the superheroes. These fathers, I've seen men walk up into different places where stuff is jumping off, and the presence of our fathers, of us just being there, just changed the whole atmosphere because of that strength, of that presence, and all that type of stuff. Brother Dennis, look, man, thank you for being patient, brother Dennis. Listen, you're doing amazing work. You know what I mean? Birthright, living legacy. You know what I mean? But I need to know not what inspired that beautiful background right there. We'll find out about that later. But what inspired the dream of what you're doing, man? And like, give us a little bit of a breakdown. Like, why inspired? We talked about the passion of Brother Johnson. We talked about the passion of Brother Lake. But what inspired you to be able to do what you're doing? Because this is important, because other people need to understand that passion that they might be feeling might lead them to start something too. So what inspired your passion, sir? We can't hear you.
Simply put, there you go.
Yes,
the simply put is the absence of. You guys had the Miyagis, you guys had the fathers, the footsteps to show me how. I didn't. And so I was a young man that was, taking care of my third child by the third mother, because I was out in the streets living what I thought was the exemplary life of a young black man depicted on TV and in music. And so I lived those things that I thought would gain me the status and the reputation that I wanted. But what I've learned is what the prophet Charlemagne the God said, street cred has never bought me a car or a house. And so, but it did get me a wonderful seat in the federal penitentiary. And so I got an opportunity to see and live out those single mother statistics that he's talking about. As I always tell people, we're 17% of the population. We can't be 100% of the problem. And so when we're talking about these systems and processes, I was a young man that was trying to figure out, how do I become a better father, and not just when she's not mad at me or when they're not dating someone. How do I become a better father where I can actually model? Because a lot of times people think that, mentoring is all we need to do. We just show up and be perfect strangers and do the thing, and then we go on about our way. But the problem is I still got to go home. And so when I go home, I have to restart. And so the mentorship is 100% needed, but also on the other end, we got to burn that candle at the other end. And as one of my mentors said, Dr. Miles Monroe, he says, if a purpose of a thing is unknown, abuse is inevitable. And so what I found is that it's not that fathers weren't needed. They just didn't know what it is they brought to parenting. So my mission was to validate the merit that fathers bring to parenting, helping them to understand the cognitive brain development, helping them to understand what their touch, their presence, and their voice does to their children and the co-parents. Because as you just talked about, they did a study over in Africa where they had these young wild elephants just tearing up the place, right? They're going crazy and going wild, and they're trying to figure out, how do we keep these elephants out of people's villages and huts and tearing up their houses and all this. So they hire all these experts to come over, and the experts come over. He said, you just need a bull. And they said, what? You just need a bull. There's no man here to keep them in line, keep them in check. And so what they did was they brought a bull, and they thought the poachers had came and killed all the elephants because they hadn't seen them in so long. Well, they went to go check. Next thing you know, lockstep, just like he was saying, all of these young elephants now are following this older elephant that they had placed in that space. And so a lot of things have been misconstrued over the time. So my passion came from, I started to look at, I started to remove my my blinders and start to look at, some of the movies that existed. Like, I'll give you a prime example. Have you guys seen the movie Friday, the original Friday? A lot
Yes,
of
sir.
people miss the purpose of that movie. They think it's fun, it's a block, and they having fun. You know what the purpose and the point of that movie was? It was to understand the purpose of the voice of the Father.
Hmm.
Because when you look at that movie, everything that was going on, when Craig got to that moment where he was facing adversity at his worst and he was down on the ground, everybody else was talking, but what voice did you hear? Get up, Craig. Get up, Craig. You can do it. I've been down before, Craig, right? Then when he pulled out the gun and he was about to make that life-changing decision, and what I've learned is there's 3 institutions in America. You will go to one, if not 2. You got college, you have armed forces, and you have prison. They send you to one of these because these are what indoctrinate you to create the outcomes that they need. And so when Craig was in that situation, if you think about it, the only thing that snaps a military person that's having PTSD or going through a moment, the only thing that'll get them out of that is the voice of a commander. And so when you had Craig about to make the biggest decision that would affect him and his future, the only thing he heard was ruminating in his head was what his dad said earlier. You think you're a man with that gun in your hand, don't you? I'm a man without it. I'm a man. And so he had to make a decision, split decision. Now, what Dr. Johnson and Mr. Lake have that I didn't have that voice of the Father. I had the voice of the hood. I had the voice of those people that I reached out to that were in my area who were inspiring me and influencing me. I had the voice of Brother Lynch running through my head and Sibo and all these guys who were paid to poison me, but I didn't know it at the time. And so what inspired me was to bring about a community where fathers can get together and discuss and have real conversations about what's going on in fatherhood. And so what we tried to do was we tried to create an opportunity for all fathers to come together. It's real hard because people really want it to be like this subsect to where you just have black dads or just have dads that are getting out of prison or just have people that are addicts. Nope. I have all fathers. The reason is because the only thing that changed me and any other person that is in these kinds of situations is exposure. If I don't meet Dr. Johnson, I don't get an opportunity to know that that's real. If I don't talk to Mr. Lake and I don't get a chance to be with Mr. Lake, I don't know that having a father in my life can be a good thing and actually is inspiring. I once walk around with this idea of this idiot box that's behind me, programming me to believe that fathers are stupid or fathers are dumb or they're accessories. Because a lot of people don't know that in 1991, Homer Simpson and Al Bundy were introduced in the same year. And so when you start to see the breakdown of the family, it was coincided with entertainment, with all the George Jefferson was not the guy to mess with. When you look at, things like, Good Times, like that father role was the pivotal role. But then they took him out to make JJ more prevalent, which is why he wanted to quit anyway, because we don't have to play these buffoon roles. Fathers actually have a purpose. And so that's what inspired me to get down. I could talk about this all day, so I'm going to get
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. Listen, the funny thing is I won't be looking at TV the same. You done messed me up today, bro.
Hey, as you should. I'm
I
telling
appreciate that.
If you
I
go back and
appreciate
watch
that.
Friday now with that
Yeah.
context, it will completely change the way you see it.
That's powerful, man. Thank you for sharing that too. All of that, actually. I'm gonna watch the video again just so I could write some of that stuff down. So just these things have been plotted to be able to like change the whole the imagery is how much is the imagery of
100%.
the fathers.
I mean, if you just think about 1991, right? You have Homer Simpson, Al Bundy, you have Snoop Dogg, you have Dr. Dre. Like I could go on and on about all the influences that came that diminished the role of men, that degraded women by a large standpoint.
Right.
I mean, because again, it's not the best scenario, but being a single mother wasn't as bad of an opportunity as it is now. Equal access is what we're fighting for. I mean, I got a bill right now, 92-1 in the House. We passed, and we're fixing to do an interim study on the October 21st. We're trying to fight in the system right now just to give fathers 50% access. Just think about that has to become a law to give fathers 50% access. Right now, they don't have the access. Oklahoma is a woman's state. It's a mother state because they think fathers are not necessary. And so we have to go and prove the point that fathers are 50% responsible for creating children and able to take care of them.
Right. Good stuff. All right, I'm gonna come to Dr. Johnson here, Dr. Waldo E. Johnson Jr. So I read about your work with local and federal agencies. This is going to be a two-part thing here, Dr. Johnson. Your work with local and federal agencies to measure father involvement and to improve programs for urban Black fathers. Like I read about that right here. I want you to talk about that. But then back to back with that, if you could share like some of the policies that's some of your background too, some of the policies and that are out there that affect Black men in their engagement opportunities. Brother Dennis mentioned some of that stuff right there already. He started it, but if you could follow that up right there, and just so we could talk about that. So talking about your work with local and federal agencies, because this is something that everybody has a different lane. This might be a lane that someone might be able to get involved in, but and the ways that you were measuring and the ways to improve programs for Black fathers.
Sure.
Dr. Johnson.
Let me just say that I will talk about this first about my engagement with local programs and some of the work at the national level with government, but also with foundations and other entities. I very much appreciate being on this panel with Brother Lake and Brother Dennis, because much of my research, even that I do, is guided by the work that I observe or I'm involved in with brothers like these brothers who are leading programs. You know, one of the things that was very important to me as I was making the transition from becoming a social work practitioner to becoming a researcher is that I wanted as much of my research to be based on the lived experiences of the men that I'm trying to help. And so making sure that I am understanding some of the questions and the concerns that plague urban Black fathers that prevent them from being fully engaged in their children's lives, whether it is some personal problems they're having, maybe like substance abuse or not being able to have a good co-parenting relationship with the mothers of their kids, or whether it is a situation where the fathers are no longer involved because they are incarcerated. Thinking about research questions that really reflect the way in which these men live, become really important, because more than just thinking about all of the research papers or the books that I might be able to write, I really want my research to be useful to the populations that I'm trying to serve. And so I still do work with local organizations here. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with a variety of them. The two that I engage with perhaps most now is the Dovetail Project here in Chicago, which works with young dads between the ages of 16 and 23 years old to get those young fathers engaged with their children. But also with another community-based program, Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities, which has some young fathers in, but the men who participate in this latter program span adulthood. You have young fathers, middle-aged fathers, and even some older fathers. Those experiences and working with those fathers helped me to kind of sharpen the kinds of questions and studies that I really want to do in order to help that population. And as a result of being able to work with those particular programs and the fathers and in some instances, the mothers and the children as well in those programs, then I'm able to think about the ways I can contribute positively to federal programs and to initiatives that are being conducted or funded by foundations and other entities. So once again, the idea is to make the research very useful in that it can translate into policy that really does begin to address the concerns and the problems that are being experienced by the fathers, themselves. And I view that as a huge advantage, for me with respect to my research, and a privilege, because to be able to be close to the ground, if not totally on the ground, but close to the ground in terms of thinking about these are the needs of fathers, then I feel much more comfortable about the kinds of policy actions and the kind of policy work that I might be involved in terms of improving outcomes, not only for the children of these fathers, but ideally improving outcomes for the fathers and the mothers of the kids as well.
Good stuff. No, I appreciate that. That's important. One thing that I learned is your role is important, especially for future funding and things like that too. So to be able to tap into your role and being able to connect with universities. My wife's director of School of Social Work at Pitt, so she's a social worker. Social workers rock. You know what I mean? That's why I married her. But I also think it's important for fathers to see Black social workers, and especially for me to see therapists. You know what I mean? To be able to see that piece right there. So thank you for that, sir. Brother Keynon Lake. It's funny, when I was sitting there thinking about your work, I thought about me and you probably have something in common, because we were blessed to have, like Brother Johnson, we were blessed to have fathers that were very active and known in the community and stuff like that. One of the biggest challenges that came with that is we had to share our fathers with everybody. You know what I mean? Is that something you had to deal with on a regular?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, you throw a rock in any direction, and everyone knew who my father was.
Right.
In all communities. And so, I'll never forget, I was probably either a junior or a senior in high school. And, it got to the point, and it was around 11:30 at night, and somebody from the community called, and anytime community called, he would go, and so, he came back home, and that next day, we had a conversation. I said, "Look, Pop, you're getting old, man. Like, why do you have to continue to run out here every time somebody calls?" And he said, "Son," his exact words, he said, "Son, one day you'll understand. When you're in a position, to help others, you pull up." And so, I'm in that position. So I want to be able to help my community, and be able to navigate and guide and just do my part. And so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to have friends would come over to the house, and Brother Johnson, you sound like you know what I'm talking about. People come over to my house I'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing? We're gonna go downstairs and do something." You know what I mean? And they're like, "No, I'm actually here to see your dad." I'm like, hold up. What kind of mess is that? But then I'm like, I had to look at it, how much of a blessing that was. How much of a blessing that was. You know what I mean? You guys know what I'm talking about. And then I think about now that's the role that we play in so many different ways. My biggest thing is making sure that we have balance with that piece. I think that was something that my father didn't do as well with the balance. He was making sure everything was cool. Thank God we weren't cutting up with so much, but that was something that was challenged. Brother Keynon Lake, can you do me a favor? Take me through. All right, I'm 19. I know I don't look 19 right now. That's back when I had hair when I was 19. I think I had a box, actually. You look pretty fly. I'm 19 years old. I'm a father. I've been in in the juvie system, you know what I mean? In and out a little bit like that, but I want to do more. You know what I mean? I heard about your program. So like, I'm coming to you. Like, can you sort of walk me through the process a little bit just so I could see what I could do?
Absolutely. So, we get involved as early as 5 years old. So we have a junior program. My daddy taught me that junior, which gets our youth from ages 5 through 11. Our flagship program is 12 through 19, which is middle and high school kids. And we also have an ambassador program. So how it works is our juniors are taught by our ambassadors. Everyone wants to be. So if you come to our flagship program, that's the 13 through 12 through 19. And you've been in this program 5 years, you then become an ambassador. Your job is to train our juniors. You know the validity of the program. You've been in the program long enough. Your job is to train our juniors, and they want to be you anyway. But it also gives us an opportunity to provide leadership skills, tools, and training. So now now it's almost like if you're using sports as an analogy, you're the quarterback, I'm the coach, and it's your job to get the team involved and get the team ready. For those 19-year-olds who come through that, we have a job training program to where we work with skilled carpenters, electricians, plumbers. We have 25 tracks that we could put you on to learn skills and trades to not only send you out in community, but the key is providing resources, opportunities for our youth, and being able to have them, put them in positions to be successful, right? We know, I think everybody on this panel probably have went to college and graduated from a college. College is not for everybody. All of our youth are not going to make it to college. So what are we going to provide for them? How are we going to tell them? I think somebody said it. We do life with our kids, and making sure that you are prepared for the society and the world that you're going to face. Also understanding that we're not going to sit here and have a kumbaya session because we are black men, right? We know the struggles of the system that's out there. We know what's going on, but we want to teach you and show you the pitfalls. We want to show you how to avoid the penal system, how not to get caught up in that, because again, we know the penal system is a money-making entity as well, off the backs of us. And so let's not go down that road. Let's talk about how that system is going to keep you behind and cause you, and again, in a country where we have to be twice as good. We want to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position that's going to cause you to start off already more so behind than we already are, right? And so with that, opportunities, part of my program, we have a lot of our youth live in communities where there's one way in, one way out. Part of our organization, part of our program is providing opportunities. If they can see it, they can achieve it. We took 50 kids to Selma, Alabama, where we walked across Edmonds Precious Bridge, shoulder to shoulder with Jesse Jackson, Hillary Clinton, Booker. We took 100 kids to Missouri to the Kids Across America camp. Really, 25 kids in 2024, 2023, 2024, 25 teenage boys to New York City. We won't be taking that trip again. That was a tough trip in New York. New York was tough, but really being able to expose these kids to different things, they can see it, they can achieve it. And so understanding that your limitation is what you put on yourself, but as long as your brain, your mindset changing, you can do anything. And I think that's what we're all on this panel talking about. Like, I think Brother Dennis said it. He said he didn't have that dad, but he had people in the community. And as men, we know, let me make no mistake, kudos, big ups, and shout out to all our single moms. I understand that you guys have you do a yeoman's job raising kids, primarily young men who get honorary. My grandmother used to say, as you get a certain age, you start to smell yourself, right? We know that young men, boys, they get to a certain age, they start getting hair on their chest, and start thinking that they do. But so I understand what our women and our mothers have to go through. But I also feel like having those men in our youth lives, those father figures, those men who can guide our kids and tell our kids, is what we're missing in some of our communities and in society. So we are not trying to take over and being fathers for our kids, but really being able to provide opportunities, being able to put our kids in places where they can succeed, and to build confidence in us so we can be ready for the world.
Good stuff, man. That's powerful. These conversations are so important. My son just went to college, and my daughter is in high school right now. Like, did nobody tell? I need a support. I need to be down there with y'all. You know what I mean? Like, I need a support group. Like, it's as they say, a whole new world for me right now. You know what I mean? And like, I'm super protective. I deal with the streets all day. I deal with, incarceration. I'm in like some of the toughest places, and I've seen a lot. And through the years, I've been extremely protective of my children, and my son being 3 hours away from me has not been easy. So like most of my conversations has been with brothers like yourself. What'd you say, good brother?
I said, I would say this too. As fathers, we don't get enough credit. It's always men, that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
As a man, he's supposed to do this, he's supposed to do that. And so really being able to let fathers and men know that you are valued, you are appreciated, I think Brother Dennis said it. You know, in his state, you know, it's not a state that really, you know, shows any sympathy to men. We know in the court systems how child support systems target our men and stuff like
Right.
that. And so, as fathers, we need to understand, and the country, the world, everybody needs to understand that fathers are needed, and
Right.
it should be big up to the community, and to all those who are acknowledging that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Brother Dennis, I need you to take me through that journey too. I'm the same guy. I'm the same guy. And I'm trying to, you know what I mean? I'm trying to come to your program to sort of fill it out. What resources do you have that could impact? And I'm sure you're out the box. You know what I mean? You both are all of you are coming with some very out the box stuff. And you don't realize how much you're helping me already. But like, because this is the work we do on a regular basis. But like, how does your program work? Walk me through it a little bit.
So how our program works is, again, we are Fatherhood Celebration and Support Organization. Our mission is to be able to help validate the merit that fathers bring to parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when a father is coming to me, we have 4 different types of fathers that we work with. The first type is the experienced father. This is a father that had a father, but that knows what it's like to be with a man in the home, knows what that responsibility is like. We then have our abandoned fathers. These are fathers that didn't have fathers, had to rely on coaches, pastors, big brothers, uncles, cousins, other people's fathers, to be able to learn those life lessons. Then we have our supervised fathers. These are the guys that are experiencing hurdles, that are going through court or trying to reunificate, all those kinds of different things. And then we have our step-ups. Now, these are our stepfathers, big brothers, uncles, cousins, pastors, people in the community that come alongside. So traditionally what happens is we get a dad referred to us, or they come to us and they say, hey, man, I really am looking for some guidance. Our first step is to get to know who they are by doing a one-on-one. So I need to sit down and talk to you because what I've learned is that in this nonprofit world, a lot of times they try to put you in a box to say, hey, check these few things. Okay, here's a prescription, got you going. But that's not how it works. You may have had some serious situations. You may not realize that your situation is not nearly as bad as you think. And so with the research they've done, even coming with these things like when we say terms like abandoned father or a lost father, is a lot of times they're just counting, do you live in the home with the kids? It doesn't mean that you're not engaged. And so when we talk to dads, we try to find out what is actually going on in fatherhood for you. And so I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to talk to you, figure out exactly where you are, what you're trying to gain, what you're trying to do. Then next thing is I'm going to invite you to the community, which is our biweekly fatherhood meeting. That's where you're going to get an opportunity to meet other fathers, to connect with other men.
Community.
The community, because another thing that we don't talk about enough in the fatherhood space is the epidemic of loneliness that's going on right now. And I say epidemic because 25 years ago, every man had at least 15 close friends, right? They say that now you can't find 10 men with one close friend. And what that does is that puts an enormous amount of pressure on you. So if I say, Reverend Jones, you're my friend, right? You're my one friend. Well, now I got to call you in good times. I got to call you in bad times. I got to call you when I need something. I got to call you when I want to go fishing. I got to call you when me and the wife want to go do something with friends. Like now you're going to be like, bro, chill out, which is what a lot of the men that are doing these jobs get burnt out. This is why they get over exhausted. And our young people today, this is why they flip out so much when people unfriend them, because they are thinking this is my one person. But if you have 10 close people, which is why we offer community, then it starts to become, hey, I like Transformers and you do too. Or, hey, I remember, I like to go fishing. Then, you don't have to call me for that. You call that guy. And I'm not your fishing guy, but I'm still your friend. And so teaching those kinds of things are things that are caught, not taught. And so once we bring you in and you get an opportunity to start talking about what is happening in fatherhood, I lead with vulnerability so they get to understand what it's like for me learning how to be married. I've been married 6 years. So a lot of my problems are new. We have
Right.
guys that have been married for 30 years, 20 years, guys that have never been married before. So when we're talking about perspective, that's what gives them that opportunity. And then after we do our first one-on-one, you come to the meeting. Then we, have you come to the meetings, and then we figure out exactly what it is that you're needing and who you need to be connected to. And then we walk you through that and warm handoff and always keep you engaged.
That's good.
And so we have other fathers that are here. Like I got a dad in the other room right now calling the dads to check on them, to make sure that they're okay, if they're in need of anything, because these are things that are oversight. When we talk about doing fatherhood work, a lot of times, moms buck up like, wait, what about me? And it's like, no, both parents are intrinsically valuable to a child. Here at Birthright, we say you get your values from mom, which is your attitude, your belief, your ethics, and your morals, but you get your value from dad, which is your worth, merit, and importance. And if you leave home without either one of these things, it's going to be absolutely critical that somebody helps to put those things back into your system.
That's good stuff. Question for you. Then we'll head back to Dr. Johnson. Tomorrow morning, I one of my groups through the reentry work that I do is I'm going to be at the county jail. A lot of those kids. This is a juvenile unit that I'm focusing on right now. A lot of them, I could probably out of the group, 99% of them don't have their fathers around.
Right.
And out of that group, at least 40% of them, now they're under 18, have kids, have children. What, a lot of times like that the number of kids is like a badge. You know what I mean? Like a badge of like, yeah, I got 3 kids, that type of stuff. Now that doesn't say that they're taking care of them and stuff like that.
Right.
What should I share with them? Because I want to tell them, I should have share my life. I tell them about the journeys, and I want to be able to be like, yeah, I was with these geniuses who are fathers, and like some of the conversation was about this right here. What should I tell these young men, not just the ones who are fathers, but the ones who, because a lot of times the other ones are trying to become fathers so they could have them, so they could have that cool points too. So what should I tell them?
The first thing I would tell them is they need to understand that there's a portion and a section of their brain that won't even open until they take care of a child that belongs to them that can't take care of themselves. This is the very start of men fatherhood maturity. This is how you hear guys doing crazy stuff like riding motorcycles and doing wheelies, and then they had a daughter and they're like, when I held that baby, everything changed. That's why. It's because they need to understand that they have to be engaged or they will not start that maturity process. And then number 2 is they have to live by a thermometer, or they have to live by the thermostat, not the thermometer. They have to set the temperature and the tone in the relationship that they have with their co-parent, not checking it. Because if they are checking the temperature, then that means they're going to be on an emotional ride for the rest of their lives. But if they come in and they stay at 70 and understand that every time you re-enter that woman without making a commitment to her of marriage or whatever that looks like for you, you start that crazy cycle over again. Because a lot of times as young men, I mean, I can speak for myself for sure, I didn't know. So I thought that every time we had sex, that gave me an opportunity to be a father and be present. But what I really didn't know is I was hitting reset on that kind of cycle. Because now when I go back over there, she's going to be thinking, okay, well, we're going to do this thing. But now she's going to be thinking, okay, something has changed. We're going to be together. Well, no, I was just doing this because I thought this is what you wanted. And so by helping them to understand those 2 things, 1, they cannot start their process of maturity until they take care of that child by themselves without anyone else helping them, helps them to understand the finite ability of what a child is. Because a lot of times we talk about children, like you said, like a badge of honor. It's like, oh yeah, I got 4 kids, I got 10 kids, I got no. When you start taking care of one child and you realize how many times you have to feed them, the crying, the need, the paying attention, like that changes you as a human, especially as a man. And then when you start to get into the other things, when you start to set that temperature, by being consistent, being able to communicate what your needs and your desires are versus just, going on a whim, it's helpful. And having those conversations with those young men are important, because when you start talking about, hey, look, this is what is expected of me as a father. This is what is expected. I mean, I have grown men that think that they are supposed to just tell, their co-parent what to do, and they're supposed to do it even though they live in two separate houses. And I'm saying to you, like, no, that's not how it works. You have to give your page of what your expectations and values are, what hers are, and then you two create a parenting plan together, which is called getting on the same page. But I would just tell them those two things is like, once they start taking care of that child physically, when they're holding that child and being with that child, it will change them. But then two, be careful of how you communicate with your body or with your words to your co-parent, so you don't send mixed messages and cause yourself a lot of drama and turmoil.
That's good. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
And let them know that there's resources out here. Like,
right.
Log in from anywhere. I mean, I'm pretty sure Mr. Lake has ways to be able to communicate. We have guys logging in from all over North Carolina, Texas, New York, everywhere. There's resources out here.
And what you guys are doing is so important. Like in Pittsburgh, we have through Operation the Morning, we have a internet radio piece that we have where it's ran by returning citizens. You know what I mean? So like, you guys talking about these type of conversations and podcasts and things like that, we'll connect offline, because here's the thing. It's so important to be able to pull in resources to be able to help the people that we're blessed to serve on a regular basis. Right. You know what I mean? That's important. And you guys heard me calling you geniuses, like, and that's real talk, because like, you're doing the work. Everyone has a lane in this thing, and everyone's doing it extremely well. Somebody was asking, where's that? They were asking Dr. Johnson, are you doing any research around paternity fraud and DNA at birth? Anything with that, sir?
Excuse me, I'm not doing that work. And I'm hard pressed right now to kind of say where you might find that work. The work I'm engaged in right now is actually looking at child support broadly. I've been working with a couple of other researchers, fatherhood researchers, who may be familiar to some of the people in the audience. Dr. Ron Mincy, formerly of Columbia University, and Dr. Cleopatra Caldwell from the University of Michigan, and also Dr. Kirk Harris, who has been doing father practitioner work for a long time. And what we've been trying to look at a bit more closely is child support. And how is it that judges and lawyers who work in family court perceive and work with fathers who come before them? What kind of things are running through their minds as they're making decisions about child support orders? Are all of these judges still only thinking about what is often viewed as imputed wages, and that's not a father's actual wage, but the wages that someone might impute based upon if they were working 40 hours a week, they ought to be making this amount of money. But we know that's problematic, because it's often the case that the amount of money that we might impute that Black men might be making, they often are earning far less than that. And the other thing is that many of these men may have other obligations in addition to the obligations that they have to their children, particularly if they're not living in the household with their kids.
Brother
Dennis, I saw you getting excited over there. I saw that.
Listen, what he's talking about is absolutely vital. Like, I don't think people realize the number one revenue source for DHS is child support. Like, if you are, I have to coach dads and tell them, do not ever speak about money when you go to that courtroom. You are the customer. You are the product. If you go in there and you tell some judge, hey, I'm making too much, or you're taking too much money, you're talking about their retirement. You're talking about the salary of every person in that room, her attorney, your attorney, the court reporter, the bailiff, and the judge's retirement. they're not trying to hear you.
Thank you, sir. No, that's how could brother Johnson, how do we, because your lane isn't just like all the lanes, your lane is extremely important. This, I read a good book one day that talks about people perish because of lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? How do we learn what you're like, how do we grow from the stuff that you're sharing? You know what I mean? Like you're sharing some, as my wife will say, that like secret nuggets that are extremely important to be able to help counteract the attack on Black fathers, you know what I mean, on fathers, you know what I mean? But that information is something that isn't shared but so much, because a lot of times people are like, I'm not trying to listen to him. Oh, I don't understand it. But like, how do we take what you're doing and I like to say, and Chuck D it, you know what I mean? And add and take it to be able to, so we could be able to share that information with, Brother Lakes, following, and Brother Dennis is following, while we're supporting you as your background dancers. You feel what I'm saying? Like,
I understand.
Because what you have is so important, because you put a lot of work into it, because you're passionate about it. But I just want to make sure that we find ways, and that the people who are watching find ways to be able to get involved and be able to get that word out in their places of faith, places that they're involved in, their clubs, their fraternities, their sororities, all that type of stuff, because what you have is strong. So how can we help?
So I would say a venue like this one is one of the great ways to be able to take advantage of this, because there are a lot more people than Waldo Johnson who are out there doing research on Black fathers. In fact, and a lot of younger scholars who are like moving it further ahead than those of us who've been doing it for a little while perhaps may have thought that it would get. And so I find that when we have an opportunity to be a part of community in audiences like this, which spans not just talking to people who are doing the exact thing you're doing, or talking heads in terms of researchers talking to researchers, but when we have opportunities to kind of break down the work that we're doing and talk not only to people like yourselves who are leading programs, but also in instances where we have an opportunity to talk to the fathers in those programs, or fathers who are looking for help in lay terms, where we kind of remove ourselves from all of the language of the research and talk to them in everyday language to help them understand exactly what it is that we're doing. I think that's one of the best ways to kind of think about how you spread it. Of course, I publish some of my work. I mean, I try to publish as much of my work as I can. And so some of it you can find, online. I published a book some years ago that was focused on social work with African American males, and you can find that book online. But as I said, I view myself as a part of a larger community of scholars, as well as practitioners and lay people who are just really interested in trying to find ways to help Black men and Black boys be better.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you, sir. That's important. I just want to make sure that we're finding ways to be able to uplift all the different lanes, because everyone's bringing something different or something special to the table. Brother Keynon, in your work, as a father, maybe it's just me. Sometimes things get a little overwhelming. You know what I mean? As a father and as a leader in the community, how do you take care of you to make sure that you're going to be able to help others while running one of the biggest organizations out that way?
To be honest with you, Reverend Jones, I don't. That's one of the things that I think, when you're in this work. And so I think it's safe to say, when you're, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Dennis and Dr. Johnson, when you're a Black-led organization, especially in the beginning, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
You have to drive the van, you have to do this, you have to do that. You're conducting programs, you're the finance person, you're the fundraiser, you're doing everything. When you're a Black-led organization. And again, I think it's safe to say that this is something that is prevalent across the country, right? And so, the resources that our counterparts have are not readily accessible to us, and we all know all too well how that is an issue, right? And so part of the problem, I think, is taking care of yourself, being able to show up, being able to make sure that you're doing all the things, self-care is huge when you're doing all the work. And I think for me, speaking candidly and honestly, that is something that I've struggled with. I have a bleeding heart, and
Mm-hmm.
something that my team now is, we got to change your phone number. Everybody shouldn't be able to call you and have 100% complete access to you all the time. Like,
Right.
this literally has been something that my team has been doing over the last, probably over about the last, 5 to 6 months now. And it's been resistant because, I want to be able to answer every phone call. Again, I think I led by saying, I think, my passion, my drive is servitude.
Right.
But
Right.
it's also being able to, have that bandwidth to understand that, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not good to anybody.
Right.
And I think it's easier said than done. But again, being able to not answer every phone call, being able to have scheduled meetings, people can't just show up at my building and expect the audience, and so, and also I think when you're in the business of being servitude, that also makes you feel bad. Like, these people
Right.
came all the way here to see me. The least I could do was show up and give them the attention that they need. And so that's something that I've struggled with. My wife and my my team now has all but took my phone. You see me, I think if you've been watching the thing, you've been seeing me shuffle. My wife came and took my phone, and then she gave
That's a
it
good
back
wife.
in the
That's a
middle
good
of the
wife,
building.
sir.
Uh,
That's a good wife.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's something that definitely I struggle with. Again, I think Black-led organizations struggle with some of that. But
Right.
a balance is definitely important because you want to be able to show up and do what you need to do, not only so you can benefit the people who you're serving, but for yourself as well.
Right. That's good. Appreciate you being open about that too. Brother Dennis, you too. Same question. Same question.
Yeah, I mean, what he touched on was absolutely vital. I mean, it's as he said, like in Black-led organizations, the support is just not as prevalent until you get going. And that same conversation, that same thing that he said, like I've had that conversation at least 10 times in the last 6 months of, hey, they shouldn't be able to just come back and come by and just stop in. And I was like, but this is what we built it on, is community and being available and making it happen. But one of my other mentors, who ran a $400 billion company, sat me down and had a conversation, and he said, "Hey, let me just explain what's going to happen." He said, "You know, imagine Birthright going worldwide. We're everywhere. You got buildings, you got all these fathers, you're doing all these things, but you and your wife are divorced." And it hit hard. It hit hard to have to think about answering the question to my wife, why are they so much more important than I?
Hmm.
And I was like, well, they're not. In my mind, I'm serving them because it serves us, and then it
Mm-hmm.
serves our family because this is what this is what we do. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
build this, but we have to model what it is that we're after, and nothing is more hard hitting than somebody that's done all the work to get these organizations off the ground, to get them flowing, to get people to see the value and to see the purpose, and then have to then pass the phone or pass the baton to somebody else, not because they're not capable. It's just there's just a wealth of experience that you just can't translate over. And it's one thing to be able to say, hey, I've had guys want to come and work here, but their customer service is not there yet. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell them, I say, hey, people are not an interruption to your day. People are your day. If
Mm-hmm.
we're not serving people, then what are we doing? But I also, like one of the speakers we're having is Dr. George James. I keep this bracelet on. It's called I Give Myself Permission.
Oh, that's
He's
my
coming.
guy.
Oh yeah, Dr. George is coming
That's my,
here on
that's my
November
Be Me
10th.
brother. Tell my
Hey,
Cornell from Be Me said what's up.
listen, I'm Be Me fam too. I'm Be Me fam.
Okay. Be who?
As-
Okay.
Exactly. So, but Dr. George is coming because again, Men have to give themselves permission. I have to give myself permission to not be on all the time. I have to give myself permission to, I mean, I've sat many a time, I've sat with many a men and say, man, what do you do to relax? How do you enjoy life? Because my wife said, she turned to me. I mean, we've been married, like I said, we're on the 6th year. She turned to me last year and said, what do we do for fun? And I said, what do you mean? We work. That's that's what I do. I mean, I don't, and so I struggle with that as well. And it's not because I have this ego to think that I'm the only one. That's not the point. What I'm saying to you is it's just hard because when you are the linchpin to so many people's stability and success, it's great that we have all these resources, but just because I pass them off to a resource doesn't mean they're going to treat them humanely. It doesn't mean that they're going to be there to actually help solve the problem. Sometimes they just need to be able to have that father figure, and that father figure can't change every couple of weeks. It can't change every couple of months. So, let's like for Mr. Lake, I was saying, man, I got to figure out something. I mean, I've tried spa days. I've tried sitting on the beach with the Mai Tai, but this is what I teach my fathers. I said, you have to remember that for men, God gave us work. Okay. So the way that we relax looks a lot like work, because I kept thinking I was supposed to be on a beach somewhere relaxed. And that's not the case, because if you look at how we relax, friends, golf, basketball, it may be, creating, building, making something, it may be working out. All these things look like work. And so if we make that shift to say, hey, what is the work that serves you? Meaning, if you go and build some patio furniture at your house, is that going to relax your mind? Is that going to be able to put you in a space where you could build and be okay? That's different work than your actual day to day. And so wearing those different hats is very important. So that's what I've done. I started to pick up a hobby of something that I can do, that I enjoy, that I can do with friends, that doesn't look like me sitting around feeling like I'm wasting away.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for sharing that. Dr. Johnson.
Yes.
Same for you, sir. How do you take care of yourself, and are you good with that? Let's just be honest. You know what I mean? Because this stuff, we depend on you for your research. We depend on you for your wisdom to be able to help change community. How do you take care of yourself?
I'm getting better at it.
Yes, sir.
I'm guilty all too often of advocating for others to do self-care, but not always
We're all
doing
not
it
nice.
in the manner in which I should be doing it myself. But as both Brother Dennis and Brother Lake has said, it's really important. I mean, even in order for us to show up and be the best that we can be for others, we have to take time to prepare ourselves to do so. And
Yes, sir.
in taking time sometimes mean relaxing,
Right.
finding ways to maybe step away from the challenges and taking care of the things that will allow us to be better at taking on challenges when we resume that work. And so the moment in which we're living right now, coming out of the pandemic several years ago, I think have all been the kind of life experiences where all of us should be much more attentive to the ways in which we engage in self-care. And it means different things, for different people, but finding yours sweet spot with respect to that becomes vitally important.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. 2 years ago, I took my family on a cruise. With the work that I do, I'm 24 hours, which can drive a household crazy. Always on call. Something happens, I got to go. I got to deal with a situation. Always in crisis mode. When I took my family on a cruise, I got to a point where my phones didn't work, and I felt guilty for a little while. And then, unfortunately, it took me like 2 days to get past that right there. But I remember my daughter saying, "Dad, you're here." You know what I mean? I was like, what do you mean? I've been here. I've been with you for the last like 2 hours. They're like, nah, you don't get it. Like, you're here. And I was like, that's so important to be able to be present, because we give everyone so much, and like, you know, I was cracking jokes. I was ripping out, you know what I mean? Like we were just cutting up and just being a family. They're like, yo, like we missed that in you. And I was like, all right, I told myself, and I'm still a work in progress on that. And I told someone that's why I married a therapist, but I'm still a work in progress on that. But I told myself, like, I need to work on that. And honestly, I'm sharing it because I started therapy. Things started getting better, and it's still a process. But I think that's important. And the reason that I mentioned that I started therapy is I feel like it's important for other Black men. You know, people look at us as superheroes, but I need, like, you know, I'm not trying to take it to the church, but when I was passing down the penitentiary, we had an altar call. And like that day, I went to the altar first. You feel what I'm saying? They saw the example of, look, sometimes you need help. You know what I mean? And me being the leader saying that I needed help, then I looked around, and it was probably about 98% of the brothers were up at the altar with me. You know what I mean? Just like, Lord, help us to get through this situation, but we have to be those examples. So, brothers, we are gonna close out. I need some closing remarks. I need you to just share. I need you to share something that before we leave, you need to, if there's something that you're like, we need to make sure that the people that are listening to this get this, and these are your closing remarks. And this is something that you want to share that's just straight off your heart, that's important for the people to know, and go from there. All right, who's gonna start? All right, Brother Lake, you look like you're ready to do. I can see it in your face, good brother. Let us know, like, give us something to inspire us to keep on going. Let us know how we can support you. You know what I mean? How we can continue to support the work that you're doing, and go from there.
Well, one way you can support is check out our website, check out our social media handles, and just follow us. I think the more people who are informed about what we're doing, we can. And the thing about it too is, while I feel like I've been doing this work for a while, uh, I want to learn still too.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a great knack and great itch to always want to learn and grow.
Right.
So any way that folks can help, anything that is going to help better not only me personally, but particularly these youth and kids that we serve, is something I'm all for. One of the things that I would close with is say to all our parents, to all our care providers, to all the folks out there working with youth, one of the main things that I would say is a couple things. One, listen, hear what our youth is telling you. Listen to them. Listen to their plight. Not just come in, with the full cup, thinking that because I'm an adult or because I have lived experience, I know what's going on. Hear what they're talking about. The other thing is, I think there was a question about, starting a nonprofit, a youth organization, stuff like that. First of all, we have to understand that everybody shouldn't be working with kids. Everybody can't and should not
Yes,
be
sir.
working with youth. I get it.
True.
People come from different backgrounds. People come out of certain situations and they're like, I'm passionate about working with kids and youth and I want to do this, that, and the third. But everybody shouldn't be working with youth and kids. But if you're really, truly passionate about starting a youth-led organization or a program, instead of reduplicating the wheel, go find a local or a program in your neck of the woods that you can trust, shadow them, see what it's about. Because a lot of times, we ask for, when you ask for rain, you got to deal with the mud.
Mm.
And people don't understand that it is a Herculean,
Mm.
you see the glitz and glamour on social media.
Wow.
But what I tell folks is that, last night I was up at 2 o'clock. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I have one of those brains that don't turn off. So you don't see the restless nights. You
Yes,
don't
sir.
see
Yeah.
behind the veneer what's
Mhm.
really going on. And so you see what's happening on social media, you see the dressed up version, but you might want to really check behind the curtain before
Right.
you start taking on those challenges.
It's good stuff, man. Thank you for that. What's that mud one again, brother? Say that one more time, brother. I'm about to get that on the t-shirt. Say that one more time.
What was that again? What
The
part?
mud story. What's the mud
Oh
one?
yeah, when you pray for the rain, you got to be ready for the mud as well. Yeah.
I felt that in the spirit. Well, I'm just saying. Brother, good Lord. That's powerful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing that. Brother Dennis.
Yeah,
Same thing,
yeah.
bro. Same thing.
So you can definitely follow us on our website, any of the social media platforms. I definitely want to second what Brother Lake said, get in the corridor. There's so many people that are trying to start their own thing when they can actually be of huge impact to somebody that's already doing. And I mean, just in Oklahoma, we have 4 million people and there's 22,000 nonprofits. That's absolutely absurd.
Wow.
Absolutely absurd. But my lasting thing that I would say, I mean, because we're at www.brlivinglegacy.org or birthrightlivinglegacy.com, either one will get you to the same place. But society has downplayed the importance of fatherhood. But the truth is that fathers provide structure, stability, and guidance that no one else can. We exist to empower fathers through mentorship, work, shops, and community events, and giving them the tools to fully engage with their children. When fathers show up, families flourish. And so our mission is to just restore the value of fatherhood by creating lasting legacy for generations. Just remember, Dad, your voice, your touch, and your presence are vital to the growth, the health, and development of your children and those around you, would be my lasting words.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Last but not least, Dr. Johnson, my good beloved brother.
Yes, well, let me just say my parting words perhaps would be that the Mariah Group has provided us with a great opportunity to come together, you know, and perhaps as I think about, you know, some of the people who are participating online, some of them I'm familiar with and very happy to see that they're here, but there are a lot of people that I'm now becoming acquainted with, you know, including the two brothers that I'm on this panel with, and you as the moderator. So I think one of the best things people can do is to think about this opportunity as a resource, because as I was just kind of looking at who's online, they're pretty much all over the country. For you know, I can't echo the comments that were made by both Brother Dennis and Brother Lake about people being quick to want to start out and create your own program. And even if that's an intention, you'll probably be well served by spending some time in a program that's already in existence, because you can learn a lot on the ground before you start trying to build your own program. But I like to think that beyond the people who are participating on this panel, there are also a number of people who are online, who also have association with other people who perhaps are not here, that can be resources. So a part of what we want to do is to continue to build this community, where there are opportunities for those who are involved in research. I hope that more of them will think about engaging with brothers like Brother Lake and Brother Dennis who are working on the ground, and vice versa, that people who are running programs will think about inviting in researchers, whether they be basic field researchers or policy researchers, because working together, we can cover more ground and we can reach more people. So thank you again for this opportunity to be here.
Good stuff. Thank you for that, Dr. Johnson. Listen, all of you, as I said before, are geniuses. I appreciate your work. Dr. Waldo E. Johnson, Brother Keynon Lake, and Brother Marquess Dennis. All of you, as I said multiple times, you all have different lanes. But once we come together, you know what I mean, we're able to change people's lives. We're able to find those lanes and support the lane that we're supposed to be called in, whatever lane that is. I always learn, I tell somebody, like, you know, I told somebody one time, they're like, we want to come with you on the street. I was like, ma'am, if you come with me on the street, you're going to get us all killed. But that's not your lane. You feel what I'm saying? But you do have a lane in the fight. You know what I mean? You do have a lane in the fight. So my beloved brothers, to the Mariah Group, thank you for letting me host. It was a blessing. Sister Michelle, my sister, to the work that all of you guys are doing. You inspired me today. Know that you inspired me today. I can't wait to go to that to the jail and tell my young brothers, you know what I mean, about the conversation, about the stories, about the example, and about the testimonies that you guys shared today. So this is just the beginning. In the words of y'all, I'm showing my age. In the words of Teddy Riley, it ain't over. You know what I'm saying? It ain't over. We still got work to do. Brother Dennis, you mentioned about a lot of movies. I'm a music guy. So it ain't over. We still got work to do. You know what I mean? We still have examples to be able to show. We still have stories to be able to tell. And we want to do the things we can. We could be able to say, all right, now, I understand your excuse, but let me tell you about my man, Brother Marquess Dennis, that didn't have a father figure that was in this situation. Let me tell you about Brother Keynon Lake, who's had a father, and he took that passion and he started this amazing program. Let me tell you about the genius of Dr. Johnson, who wrote about this type of stuff, and he's an academic scholar, and these are the same type of gifts and talents that you could do and go even beyond.
Right.
So thank you so much for the blessing of you guys working with me and sharing with my crazy self today. I appreciate it. I'm blessed to be able to be in a struggle with you guys. Let's continue to fight the good fight. Take care.
It was a pleasure, my brothers.
All right.
It was
Thank
an
you.
absolute
Take
honor.
care.
Thank you, fellas.